Hey guys, I'm Chris,
And I'm Mike.
and welcome back to this week's No Limits, the Thriller Podcast. How you doing today, Mike?
I am doing great. One more day of school left before we're out for summer. And I'm going to have a lot of reading to do this summer, Chris. I'm sure you will as well.
Oh my God, we were just going before the meeting. We were going over our reading list for July, and I haven't read an actual book in a long time. I'm used to listening to these books, and I got to actually read. But at least it's authors I love. I'm excited. So we got a new Brad Thor novel coming out. More importantly, I shouldn't say more importantly, but more intriguingly, we got a new Kyle Mills book coming out. That's not a Mitch Rapp book. Fade In. I believe you just booked back-to-back interviews. We haven't interviewed a person on this pod in a long time. Good to get back to the interviews.
Yeah, we got Kyle and Brad lined up coming soon to you guys with their new releases. So yeah, a lot of reading, a lot of interviewing, a lot of podcasting on the docket.
Yes. So we we're just keeping it rolling here. We had to push back S.A. Cosby's book. Not that we're not intrigued for it, but just things pop up. We're gonna get to it. We have a jam-packed July, a jam-packed really summer for you. But before we get to that, we have to finish this series. Dark Rising. And I was disappointed. I'm just gonna come out and say it.
Yeah. Do you think we're just darked out doing all four books back to back?
I wonder.
I wonder if that plays a role.
Sometimes I wonder that. But like, I was so high coming off of books 1 and 2.
Yes.
And then, last book we had our critiques. We weren't like super low on it, but it was the lowest of the 3. But I guess I was ready for this refresh. And knowing that we were going to get that, we did get that. It's very interesting to see how they took this book. There's a lot of things I want to talk to you about. The fact that our heroes are maybe corrupted.
Yeah.
That was super intriguing. Something we have not explored yet to date.
Yeah, for sure.
The big bad, this book had a dark rise, like the titular event happens and it's a crazy ass scene, but everyone dies.
Yeah, we needed the post-Victor era. We needed something to usher in what happens next. And the idea of a Dark Rising is just a perfect vehicle for that. A ceremony, a ritual by which the next Dark Prince is appointed, right? Like, I think it was a cool, like most things in this book, I was very happy with the concepts and the ideas. Something in the execution falls off. Something in the buy-in to all of it falls off. It should work in principle, but just didn't sit right as I was reading it. So yeah, the Dark Rising, like who's going to be the next Victor? I just don't buy into this cast of villains. And we almost get too wide of a cast of villains because the next Victor appointed in the Dark Rising is not even a character in the stories.
He's in like 2 chapters.
It's a random guy who is actually going to be manipulated and used by Mambo Italia, who is supposed to be the big bad, but not really sure how I feel about her. And then it's like she has this sidekick, Calypso, who actually is the big bad of
this book,
the plot of the book, of the shepherds, right? She's the one actually interacting with the shepherds. So it's like we have a big bad and a sidekick, but the sidekick is actually the big bad to the characters we like and we want to see. She has her own weird qualities. So I think we're going to have to dig into these villains, which is a strange thing. But on the flip side, our good guys, we're seeing kind of chinks in the armor. We're seeing some cracks, whether it's Ben Morvant. We're learning his powers seem to be receding, which maybe it either is naturally happening as he ages, or
like a Watcher.
Like what happens with the Watchers. It's almost a miracle that he still has these powers. Or is it his own doubt? His own self-transformation going down a slippery slope and a dark path. That's the reason he's losing the powers. Is it chicken or the egg? And there's a little subtle hint of Sarah Beth not outright lying, but she says to her mom she promises not to project back into the house for that final battle. And she's crossing her fingers. So she promises to her mom, she's crossing her fingers behind her back. she doesn't really mean to honor that promise. Our heroes are cracking. Like, they're not the perfect angels they've almost been set up to be. There's a couple little signals that Ben and Sarah Beth, two of the most pure characters, might have some foibles and some, some issues in their mind behind the scenes. And
even David
is getting a little jealous. That's coming through. I think that's a very interesting take to actually show the shepherds have some cracks.
Yeah, no, a lot of things I want to dive into. I think ultimately, Jed is our rock, our center. We are with him majority of this novel. And while I did like, him sort of, this is funny, like he has to go on a vacation, but he really can't.
He can't, yeah.
He can't take a vacation.
I'm sure a lot of operators and service members can identify, law enforcement.
Like that kind of stuff was interesting. I kind of bought into this idea of him, getting with Gail. Maybe it was a little fast, but like, obviously they're quick friends. She was established in the last book. Going forward, it makes sense that she would continue to be the liaison, and there's some sort of tension between them. Now that we've gotten rid of Maria, we need to bring in a love interest for Jed. I think, and maybe you can disagree, I think the biggest downfall of this book is not having the team.
Yeah. Joshua Bravo
present until the umpteenth hour.
The final action scene.
And even then, we barely get them.
I mean, the thing is, though, that's a hell of a scene. They come in huge. They come in hot and heavy for one final battle. But I want to explore their characters. I want to explore their interactions, their dynamics. And if they just operate together and don't do anything else except for downrange, we're not getting their full breadth, their full characters. And that was a deliberate choice. I remember early on in the book, the vacation stuff was being talked about. And Ben was telling Jed, look, Nisha's here, Bex is here, everyone's gone. You have to go too. Forced vacation.
Yeah, I knew that he was setting it up away. Like we're not going to be with the team. It was very intentional.
Yeah.
I think that's what took me out of the book. I love their dynamic, and we're building towards this crescendo with this last book, and then you immediately like strip that away. I don't know. And even when we did get them, we didn't get the full extent of them. Like, we didn't get the full Eli.
No, like, Eli's he's got to have an arc here soon. Like, he really does.
We saved Johnny in the last book just to kill him. In this book?
Should have been done last book. You could have got,
that was, we talked about it. That was a great, like, arc for him to die in the last book.
If he fell in the Battle of St. George's, that would have meant so much. It would have, I feel like it could have brought the team together, and then it would have given space in this book for an Eli, a Yoon, because Yoon has his moment.
I thought
at the end,
the only one out of the group is Yoon. Yoon has his moment with that fight at the end.
Huge moment.
I love it.
It's almost like an Avengers scene taking down Thanos when the three of them corner him or triangulate him, and it's like Ben's here getting off his feet after being choked out. Jed's over here with his knife fully out. Yoon is just thrown to the wall, but he's back in the game. And now they corner the one who just became the new victor. And they're just like stabbing him over and over in this massive battle. I thought that was such a cool scene. But that and the cemetery scene, if you did not have those two set action pieces, or the cemetery is more of a suspense scene.
Or where Jed is buried alive.
Where he's buried alive. I didn't like this book at all outside of those things. We also have to talk about the voodoo of it all.
Yeah, that was very interesting to me.
Yeah.
To bring that in, to set it in Haiti, have this, sort of outside of religion type thing. I don't know. I feel like this is something that Andrews and Wilson, they read about, and they're like, oh, that's a cool idea. We should incorporate it into the book. But yet, for me, it didn't quite fully fit.
Yeah.
I will reserve judgment on Mambo Italia until we see her arc play out.
Because she got away.
Because she got away. Like, obviously, and the whole Dark Watchers thing, very intriguing to me.
Awesome idea.
I wanted them to play up. I was expecting that to play a bigger role
Same.
in this book, and it did not.
And they did say, though, like it's an experimental program. So I think there's more to be done with the fact that they took Sani as one of the most powerful. She's almost like the Sarah Beth who the dark side has and wants to corrupt. So I really, like I said, I love the concepts. I don't know if they're executed well. I really like the school. I think a school where you've kidnapped kids, you're basically tricking them into thinking you're their savior by giving them nice things. You would never have a room like this. You would never eat like this. There's all this ice cream. And Sani's friend, Amadei, I think was the boy. He falling to their into their trap shows how alluring this is and how easy it will be for them to attract other children to their cause. But here's the problem. I love the idea of dark watchers and a dark school to foil St. George's and to interrupt the Shepherd's operations. But what I did not like was the zombie bullshit. So, like, you didn't need to add that element when just having the school manipulating these kids through materialism was such a really neat idea and cool concept. I don't know if the zombie thing really, one, added anything, two, made sense to me at all. It just was an eye roll moment. And three, I think there would be other creative ways you can get the kids to do your bidding for the dark side without having to do some esoteric zombie nonsense. Now, they were trying to match it with the voodoo stuff. I get that.
Because of the setting and, exactly. I get that. To me, almost the way the zombie stuff was reading to me is that it's all a ruse. Like you purposely put someone under, you bury them alive, then you bring them back from the dead, and you sort of like lie to them. And through this post-traumatic stress disorder of them being buried alive and thinking that they died,
they're brainwashed.
Into being your servant.
Yeah.
So like that's how I thought it. And like, wait, are these three kids, are they like that, or is voodoo actually real? Like it wasn't clearly explained. Clear. Like Agreed. Those three little stooges that are pour the tea, and that for sure if you were to do this visually in like a movie setting, like that would be super creepy and a key element, but that part of it just wasn't explained well enough and not needed. Like
I'd rather have them just be possessed.
Yeah,
have demon spirits in them the same way Victor and all the dark ones have these demon spirits.
You already have
just do
asking
that.
A lot of me to like buy into that, and then like you want to add in this other thing. I've already
with that.
I've already sort of like I've committed to that one. I've committed to this series, like so. Just adding something else on top of it just to add it like is not necessary.
Imagine if instead of the zombie stuff with whatever the concoction was that they make them breathe and knock them out and then bury them and resurrect them, just honestly be like, we're taking the spirits of demon children, like dead children, like maybe from the school or otherwise. And the same way Victor and the other dark ones have that burning glow in their eyes, they're doing that with children. And they can control the children. And that, to me, is even more scary. And it's in universe. It's established. It's not yet another thing you have to add.
Yeah, and what I thought was super intriguing is, right, they even mentioned that they're able to co-opt these kids and use their powers for like a very short time, but it's almost because they're a gift from God. Like God quickly like realizes that these powers I get, and then he has to. They fade super quickly, so it's like it's a time bomb. And I like the fact that all right, like you could have had like these, I don't know, maybe not most powerful demons, but like lesser demons. They're the ones that go into these kids. They're able to take over their powers, but they can only hold on to it. Only mask their intentions from God, the higher power, who gives them these gifts for so long, and then as soon as that's gone, then they have to leave the body, and the kid is no longer useful. I knew as soon as they were taking those kids on the bus, and like Sonny was like able to like communicate, like, you immediately got like someone's figured out how to make dark watchers, and that's a great concept. I like you said, we keep coming back to it. A lot of good points, a lot of good ideas in this novel. Just I think the execution just didn't do.
We're already being asked, like you said, to take so many leaps, and the faithful audience, and you heard us love on the first three books or first
2.5.
2.4 books. Yeah, 2.5 books. Love on it. We've already committed. Don't try to now extend us into believing all these other things that we have to buy into. And just to put another point on the voodoo, they at least did the due diligence of like explaining it, because
Sure.
there is a compelling factor of these actually are somewhat rooted in Christian tradition. It's just that due to human fallibility of like literally transporting people out of their homeland and kidnapping them into slavery for generations, those traditions were ripped from people. Well, how are the people going to continue their traditions, while enslaved? Well, you have to combine it with the Christian tradition. So
Sure.
you get this blend of cultures that was almost forced. And so there's a lot of good in the traditions because it is Christian based, but then there's a lot, and it is, based on true African beliefs. But then you get the weirdness because of it has to be kept underground. It has to be hidden. And so like there's the good and the bad in it. Like I think voodoo became a term in the West that basically means evil, magic, spells. Yeah. And it's not that at all. It's actually the faith of a people trying to combine African heritage with like Christian saints, for example. Yeah. A lot of their little statues, figurines are the Christian saints, but they had this mystical element to them based on animism and other roots. And I think they broke that down. And then they also got into like the differences, like Cuban Santeria is somewhat related, and Candomblé in Brazil is somewhat related, and there's a different version, the Dominican one, and then the Haitian one. So there's no doubt they did their research. They had the historical facts, but I just don't know if that was where I wanted to see the whole idea of shepherds and dark ones go. Although I guess that's what Mambo Italia is doing, is she is using those voodoo skills to almost infiltrate and take over the dark ones.
Sure.
Because she didn't want to just play along with how the dark ones have always done business. She wanted to do it her way.
And because she's a female, she can't play the normal. She can't do it the normal way.
But in voodoo traditions, there are priestesses. That's the Mambo.
Exactly.
It's no doubt they did their research. It just didn't work for me.
Yeah, I don't know. It's all right. So if that didn't work for us, let's try to focus on some things that did work for us, and then we can get into the scorecard, because there are some things that I did like about this book.
Sure, I agree.
I think my single favorite thing I liked was, seeing. I feel like we did get a deeper dive into Jed, and you mentioned like this idea of we need to know more about the TSLs.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. David.
I thought like that was almost addressed immediately. Like, okay, they were listening to our pod, even though like they weren't, or they wrote this way before we even did this pod. But like
they knew it was time.
They could tell, like, all right, we've established who these kind of characters are, and we need to play on them a little more. And immediately David has to play a role. And then I thought it was super intriguing to bring in this like infallibility with David, with him, his jealousy, his rage, almost like you can see like, all right, in everyone, no matter who you are, whether you're a shepherd, normal person, not, you can be susceptible to demons. And so I loved all that. Same thing with Ben, like with him and the rage at the end, his anger, his revenge. Like I would question that he got most of those people killed in that final scene because of the inner demons. And I'm almost positive we're gonna reflect on that in the beginning of the next book. We have to.
Ben, something's happening with Ben.
We not only lose Johnny, but we lose Carl.
Yeah.
Multiple people are injured. Like it that last battle, insane. I also say like that's the other thing. That last battle was amazing. Like
it was wild.
Like written very well. I had to go back and listen to it multiple times because we're cutting back from Sarah Beth's projections and then going back and rewinding and seeing the same thing from Jed's side, or seeing the same thing from a demon's side, or seeing the same thing from Ben's side. Like, literally we're experiencing what, like 10 minutes worth of a battle But over the course of
2 hours.
yeah, like 2 hours of like of audiobook time, like it's
Yep.
insane.
I was peeking at the cemetery scene, which comes just after the halfway point. And when that wrapped up and they saved Jed and David was the hero, I was like, what? What else are they going to do?
I know, right?
Where are they going to go with this? And then to come out with that final scene, I was like, okay, I can enjoy the rest of my time now, because I wasn't sure what was going to fill that space. And they filled it with an epic battle. Not as good as the St. George's battle for me.
Not as good, but still very powerful.
But still a very powerful one. And then I like how the girls came together when the Sarah Beth and Corbin projections found the Watchers, the children hiding in the guest house. And so they projected over there and were able to communicate with Sani. I think that added a little more drama that, you know, when Mambo Italia escaped with Sani, we saw that play out. So yeah, I like that. I do want to go back to the TSL point. I was very happy, really happy when early on he's still in Santo Domingo, so still the Dominican Republic, and it's probably before he got arrested, but the woman came up to him and said, help me find my child, and he's like, I don't know how I can help, what can I possibly do? But he promises this lady, I'll keep my eyes peeled, and he calls David. That meant so much to David, and it meant so much to me as the reader. It felt validative, like TSLs need to play a role. Jed's out here, out of his element, supposed to be on vacation, relaxing. He can't get this thing out of his mind. He thinks it sounds like he was placed there by divine intervention. The woman was told, go to this cathedral. He was like, oh, I have some free time. Let me go walk and see the sights. Like he knew. And maybe that's what we all need to tune into, right? These things that happen in our life, so we just write off as a coincidence, or we're too busy on our phones, or we're too busy with media. We don't even notice these moments, these human interactions, which maybe are taking place for a reason, for a purpose. And we all just write it off, come up with a million reasons, or are too distracted to care. Well, that's what makes Watchers and Shepherds different, is that they're attuned to those things. And maybe we all can learn from that. And because he was attuned into it, he just didn't even intentionally do it. He just naturally called David. Like, I don't think it was like a choice of like, I'm going to report this to my TSL. It was just like, I got to talk to somebody. And he even tells David, he's like, I just felt the need to talk to somebody. And so why not talk to you as a spiritual guide for me? And David's like, it really means a lot that you called me. So their relationship is helped by this. David is finding purpose after questioning his purpose, letting his daughter nearly get killed twice. I think David needed to be brought in. And that phone call showed me, dang, a guy like Jed operating without a David, doesn't have that spiritual guide, doesn't have that body to lean on, doesn't have someone to talk to and question and ask things and get advice from, is lost. And that was perfectly done. Then it came full circle when David had the shovel. Killed the Dark One. He felt powerless. He's like, Jed's gonna die. Sarah Beth is here watching with the projection. He's like, I can't do anything. I'm helpless. Oh, Jed gave his life essentially to save David and Gail. And that was
the only reason he's there is to save David and Gail.
Yeah. And Jed like sacrifices himself. So David's like, I'm just a worthless piece of nothing. I am totally worthless. Jed's the hero. He sacrificed himself again. And now I got away and I'm safe. He needed to do something. And I thought the cemetery scene was just a perfect way to save the day. And he fought a Dark One. We can say he fought and defeated a Dark One with that shovel.
I immediately thought of you when we're going through that scene of Jed calling David. And like, I loved it. Like I was like, yes, Martini got what he wanted. And like, I did too, like, because I agreed with you in the sense that we've established these roles for these people and they need to be utilized more. I think, like I said, we saw a lot more of introspection from Jed, and he's still like trying to explore his powers. Is it that like, and I was wondering this, as Ben's powers are receding, are Jed's powers rising? Is it can these powers only coexist in one shepherd? Like, like Jed will be the replacement for Ben,
the chosen
one. That's what we are grooming him for. Because he's not a watcher, he's not he's obviously an operator, but he's the best of both worlds. He's a healer, he's a communicator. He can do a lot of different things.
And that builds off last book. when Ben was so shocked, and everybody was shocked that Jed sees the Dark Ones. They expose themselves to him. And the conversation with Rachel of like, you actually saw, the demon leave Kenny's body that night. And like he and Rachel were the only ones who saw it. So he's got, I wonder, it's something like the midichlorians, right? He's got more midichlorians than everyone else, or there's a prophecy of the chosen one. And I like this idea of Ben giving it to Jed, and that's why Ben is kind of regressing, if you will. The other question about Ben is his son, his wife and son, his two kids, but primarily his son with a lot of these gifts comes up. That's got to be a plant, right? That's a seed.
Well, for sure, because the multiple times that they bring it up that like there was something happened because of his powers. Like his powers are so strong. It's almost like it's been done before in whether it's X-Men or some sort of stories that like you've had to protect this kid from his powers. Like they don't even let him go to St. George's. Like
exactly. Yep.
But he's the first person to come in and say something like Jed is missing, or like Jed is.
I think Ben gets off the phone with Jed in prison, and Ben is thinking like, I hope they're treating him well.
He didn't do it. He didn't kill the guy.
He didn't kill the guy, right?
Yeah.
That battle with Calypso.
Yeah, he knew immediately that he wasn't the one that killed the guy. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. He's like, he didn't kill him, Dad. Yeah. So I think that kid has a role to play, and I think that's gonna be related to Ben losing his powers. Like it's shifting to his son, and how you cultivate that, who knows? Do you take the Sarah Beth approach of how she's been brought in and bring this kid to St. George and let him go through the program, get a keeper? It seems like Ben is hesitant to do that.
Yeah. So I guess it must be, I feel like they were either referenced some incident or, something that they know about him that they're just weary about having him use his powers to the full extent. Yeah. So,
did you think Ben was going to die?
No, I had a feeling that he wasn't going to die. I felt like he was trying to set it up that we thought Ben was going to die, but I never really thought that he was going to die. I don't know.
Yeah, I think they're setting up a change is going to come, and I left open the possibility that change is Ben dying.
I see Ben dying in the next.
I think he has to have a showdown with Mambo Italia, and that's he saves Sonny or something.
Some sort of Revenge of the Sith type battle,
I have the high ground.
This was their first encounter. They have to, encounter again.
Yeah, I think
so. I thought it was super cool. Like, just like we said last time, that Maria Perez's recruiter was a politician. And in this one, we have multiple politicians.
Yep. The Haitian president, the German guy,
and the Spanish guy.
And Spanish guy, yep.
Yeah, so he's at the UN.
I think that needs to come to a head because we've heard hints that the dark side is in multiple positions of power internationally on a geopolitical scale.
Mm-hmm.
We've heard that, the DNI or someone in our either defense or intelligence department
is on the aligned with the good side,
aligned with the Shepherds. Instead of going on a side story to a Caribbean island and voodoo witches and priestesses, I want like this world of the Shepherds to combine with a traditional thriller, espionage spy thriller. So I want like the Shepherds version of a congressional hearing or a meeting at Langley, or, and maybe Gail can be that vehicle. Maybe something with her and the Shepherds has to bring them into the U.S. government a little bit tighter. I just think we need to see them operating within, or against the U.S. government or other world governments. I think we need a political Shepherds book soon instead of a side story adventure.
Maybe that's another reason why I was, a little let down by this novel, because I thought I assume that's where we're going. That they're putting hints in. It made, all right, we got rid of Victor. Where are we going to go next? They obviously clearly like thought of that angle by putting these politicians as being members of the Dark Rising, but they just, I don't know.
Didn't lean in.
It'll be very intriguing what they do with Mambo Italia. And I think I'm still hooked. I still want to read the next novel. Like, you know,
Sure.
even though I wasn't in love with this novel, wasn't in love with half of the last one, I'm still into the series, and I want to see where they go next. They did enough to wet my whistle to be like, all right, I'm intrigued.
This book did enough, but from the moment they opened with the vacation stuff and the team is taking a break, I knew it was almost going to be a gap, almost a filler, and it's not going to be a straight up, let's advance everything at St. George, let's advance everything at Trinity loop, let's have some big plot that involves all of that coming together. The second they said they're all on vacation, I'm like, oh, side story, Jed, go off, do something.
Yeah, because we didn't get any time at Trinity Loop, you know, besides our little bit with Sarah Beth and Corbin. Like, we're not seeing them interact during class. We're not getting into that. We didn't get any of the team dynamic, like I said.
But we set up the special mission stuff. So now we know that they're
a
special missions unit. It's like they're ready to go. I think we're ready to rip, go back to old time. And I think there's a lot of promise in the series. And it ends with the kiss. So Gail is here to stay. I think that's going to add another element. It's almost like what you wanted Detective Perez to be, but she was dark, so you knew it can never happen. Well, now you get a chance to see what they do with her moving forward. I would say the series would be very much slipping for me if I wasn't into Gail and Jed. The fact that I'm okay with the two of them together keeps me in it. Like I want to see where they go. The other thing that was kind of cool is those knocks, that couple that they first run into who is going to help them.
Who get brutally murdered.
Who get whacked early and in a crazy way. And then the voodoo stuff with the dove being nailed to the ceiling and the snake in the bed. There was just some wild, strange stuff where
if Jed's able to heal the dove. We didn't even talk about that.
Right. So Jed does have the healing powers, but he couldn't save Johnny this time.
He couldn't save Johnny this time, but his powers are growing.
I don't think he could heal the dove if Ben weren't relinquishing his powers.
That would be interesting to figure out. Yeah.
I think Ben's starting to realize there's a shift that needs to take place. Maybe if Mike Moore passes, Ben has to move into more of that spiritual guidance role. Or he can go hardcore into just the logistics, running this thing as a military op, a straight up military op, even though I can't do the spiritual stuff. So there's a lot of ways you can go. I'm interested. I'm definitely interested.
All right. You want to get into the scorecard?
Plot and action. Let's just put those two together. What do you say?
I think I'm going to go a 7 and a 7.
Yeah.
Maybe even like the action. I think the action's a 7.
Action's a 7
it's
because
saved,
of suspense.
It's saved by the suspense, the cemetery, and I think that the end scene at the Dark Rising. We didn't even talk about the action scene in Paris. Like this whole side mission that's not even like, Jed has no idea what's going on.
Yeah.
Where essentially
the first Dark Rising.
Yeah. Essentially Ben takes them into a suicide mission, unbeknownst to him. Like that's two instances. The first one he comes out, I think they only lose one operator, but they lose way more operators in the second one. So that's
second battle, yeah. 2
battles that he's now taken people in that you could question his leadership ability for.
Yeah, because he's blinded by anger and hatred.
Anger, yeah.
It's revenge. This is literally Star Wars.
No, it is. It is. Joseph Campbell,
all stories are the same. Yeah, you just put a different variety, different spice on them. Yeah.
I think I'm going to go 7 and a 6.
I was going to say 7 sounds great for action / suspense because the final battle, the cemetery scene. Plot, though, I got to go lower. The one thing preventing me from going lower than 6, so I'm 7 and 6 as well, is that I like the school development. I liked all the moments with the kids being groomed, with the different adults at the school. Like one who's like the principal, Miss Whitlock or something.
Oh, yeah, she was creepy.
She was tough as nails. And then there was that other one who they kind of liked, and Sonny was like reading her mind, and she's like...
And she actually had no idea what the hell was going on.
No, she just was a good person, good teacher, no idea what was going on, wanted to help the kids, but she's like, oh, this is strange, and yeah. Like, I Miss Harper, I think. I liked everything at the school, and the kidnapping stuff was okay. So that keeps me at a 6 for the plot. The voodoo stuff, I'd probably go lower on. Some of the way Mambo Talia she is the villain, but Calypso's the villain, and I don't know exactly who Calypso is. Calypso has weird powers too.
She can like infiltrate dreams.
She's like, I'm gonna come to Jed tonight, and it will be fun. She was creepy with her little like very lewd.
She's serpentine, and
there's a sea monster.
There's multiple times where Jed has that dream where he's on the beach.
Yep.
And he can't move.
And she's the monster.
And she's the monster that comes out, and like, but in actuality, she's there in real life, like suffocating him, like that. That was super creepy. And I think that's another thing that like brings up suspense and action, like why it justifies the 7 there, because some of the certain nuances with these characters, very interesting.
Yeah. It might do that, but it also, to me, hurts the plot a little bit because I just don't know exactly how it fit in. It's just Mambo Italia's like lackey. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't get the role for Calypso exactly.
No.
Just a henchman.
Yeah.
Part big bad, part henchman.
That and the other henchman who could see Sarah Beth.
Vedin,
yeah.
Didn't do much for me. It wasn't explained why he can sense her in the projection.
I assume that because he was I'm guessing he's like, is he the original Dark Watcher? Like, and then he's risen the ranks of.
He's like a Ben. He has the powers of like a Ben.
Yeah.
On that side.
Or he was the Sarah Beth at one point. I don't know. They didn't do enough to like.
Maybe Corbin. He was like a Corbin on there.
Yeah, they didn't do enough to fully explain that though. And even though they always mentioned that he could get them, he never actually did. That would have been more creepy and intense if like he could touch them in the projection and like cause pain that way.
We came close a few times.
Yeah, we came close, but we never confirmed.
I think if that gap would have been bridged and that happened, I think it would have upped the stakes a lot.
Sure. Yeah, because now they're no longer safe.
Yeah, and I would have been okay with that. And trying to figure out why they're no longer safe, and it's because of what they're doing at this school. What Vedin can do is what they're trying to change the zombie children to do. That would have been cool. So let's just go to bad guys then, because all this is bad guys talk. They all individually have cool traits. I don't think they all work that well as a interrelated cast. I think I have to go 3.
Yeah, I was going to say the exact
could be 2.5
thing,
but I'm going to go 3.
You know, I guess I'm raising it up from that 2.5 because the potential promise that we could get with Mambo Talia and the idea of a Calypso, the idea of a Vedin are intriguing. The idea of this, you know, we're seeing more and more of the dark players of the world. You know, now that we no longer have Victor, getting to see the Victor's like Dark Rising was kind of cool. Like
in the Sarah Beth's
flashback back to the day. So, what are you for buying? Like,
are you bought into all this?
No, but I'm not. Like, that's the problem.
Not. Yeah, the same way plot went down, I don't think I can go higher than a 2.
Yeah. Yeah. The problem is I'm bought into like the series because I want to see how it goes, but into this novel, into what they're trying to sell me for this book, I was taken out of it.
Yep, I agree.
And this one-off exploratory plot, not having all of our members, you know, bringing in other elements, I just wasn't bought in.
Took me out. Yeah. This is the worst standalone book you could ever read. If someone picks this book up without knowing the Shepherds, that's a mistake. Like,
you're confused.
I don't know what you would think.
Like,
I don't know.
Yeah.
You would have no idea. And power to them though, because
they had to do something different.
Well, they had to do something different, but I think a lot of authors try to play that game of like, we're not only writing to our hardcore fans, we're writing to somebody who just sees our book in the bookstore and wants it. I think Andrews and Wilson realized they're not the like household name of like, you see them in Barnes and Noble, you see them at the airport, you see them at the CVS. I don't think they don't need that. Their thing is like write in volume and write for the people we're writing for. Like they have a niche audience and they cater to them. So I think the fact that they just kept going in the series without needing to do a whole book, which reestablishes everything, which is too like didactic and teachy and preachy about who the Watchers are and explaining their gifts and going back to phase 1. They didn't do that. They just wrote a book for the series and kept it moving. So I would say power to them on that. They weren't trying to, bring in new people and captivate new people. It's like, we know who we're writing for. Our Shepherd's audience is all in. Let's give them an adventure. Yeah. But it's still a 2.
All right, what about good guys, Mike?
I think this is where it shines. We said the good guys are each showing a different side of themselves. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, for a lot of them, that's a bad side of themselves, but I think that should have been named. I think there were so many hints that Ben is driven by anger. David is driven by jealousy.
I wanted them to explain what's going on.
And that's the point of these networks. The Watchers have their keepers. The operators have their TSLs.
And why aren't they talking to each other and saying, hey, I just had this feeling. Well, oh, that's because we need to, because David even had that a little bit in the last novel, he's that's been bubbling up.
It needs to be addressed.
If it's not addressed early in the next book, I might get upset.
Or I think maybe it's a learning moment. I think there needs to be stakes and consequences for each character realizing they have these hang-ups or they're making these mistakes. And I think they just need to realize they need each other. And you have to be a team, and you have to be honest, and you have to have lines of communication, because we're sold on the TSLs are vital. Pastor D, Sarah Beth talking to Pastor D, even in this one, takes a weight off her shoulder. She's worried about being in the Watcher room, the White Room, too much. And she's worried about studying for her exams. And, everyone's still scarred from the big battle. When she sits down and talks with Pastor D, it's so powerful. I think everybody involved needs to realize that, name it, and we've got to see more open lines of communication as their only way to be successful and the only way to fix themselves. And I think we have to look inside in the next book. I think a lot of the next book has to be people sharing heart to heart, everyone on the team needing to open up to each other, or else mistakes continue to get made that have deadly consequences.
Yeah.
So I like what the good guys are doing here. I see some, cracks in the wall, and I think that's a good thing ultimately for everyone to have to learn from. So I'm going to go 4 on good guys. I'm going to make up some ground here.
All right, I'll see you with your 4. We're pretty lockstep on this one.
It's a little high. I think if 3.5 could be valid, but and Gale, I buy into Gale.
I think
Gale is enough.
I think like that's got to be like the edging thing is Gale and her shining moments in this novel. Yeah,
and then those Knocks, great characters, even though they were whacked. It's like that was a great little side character
and Sunny
level character.
Sunny,
Grandma.
Grandma, like just these other little minor characters that we get and are exposed to, for sure.
Yep. Setting.
Yeah, well, how did you feel about going to the DR, Haiti, being down there pretty much the entire time? We go a little time in Paris,
Yeah. The way the border was described was actually pretty good. We do a whole lesson actually on the split between DR and Haiti and whatnot. The little towns crossing the border, the school, good, not great. There's nothing that stands out. It's not like I felt the island vibes. Like, it's not like I hear the steel drum. I'm drinking coconut water. I wasn't that immersed in it, but I was immersed enough to know the local lay of the land. Even Jed doing the sightseeing in Santo Domingo. It's okay. The 2 most memorable settings almost have nothing to do with that whole island Dominican Haitian vibe. It's just a cemetery, which I pictured in my mind with the 2 dark ones sitting in that car,
sure,
watching the grave, and then the final house, the final palace. Mm. What was it? Palace of Lost Souls. Those 2 stand out. Besides that, not much. So I'm gonna go 3.
I'm gonna go a little bit higher than that. I think.
Okay.
I'm gonna go 3.5 because I think I liked the Paris catacombs, like the description of that with the, the original Dark Rising, and then going into, the first Dark, sort of the interrupted Dark Rising. And I actually felt like, not that I've ever been to Haiti, but I did do a project on Haiti in high school, and understanding this island, which very crazy history and the border, and sort of understanding those, having these two people where one speaks French, one speaks Spanish, and like, and just the mix of the culture there. I thought that they did a decent job
Yeah,
of
true.
bringing that in. So I'm gonna go a little bit higher.
I think that's fair. Yeah. I think that's totally fair.
All
Unfortunately,
right, cover
where we're
man.
not going to be too fair.
No, not at all. All right. Worst cover in the series?
Worst cover in the series by far. Worst cover we'd cover on the podcast? Quite possibly. Quite possibly.
No.
Quite possibly.
That is you're smoking one, man. We've seen way worse covers. There's no power lines, first of all.
Power lines would make it better. I'm just gonna, a
All
train might make this better.
You got Gale in the mix. You got a Jedediah. Oh, I think he's a little skinny for Jedediah. Maybe he'll even a little short for Jedediah. But I'm just like, where are they?
Where are they?
Running through the streets of, the capital of, what's the capital of Puerto
Santo Domingo.
Santo Domingo? Like, are they at the palace? No, it looks like they're in the city somewhere. So
it looks like they're on a city street, cobblestones.
Now, if the two of them were actually in Paris, this scene, like running up to try to find the Dark Rising, this would make sense.
Yeah, but that was not.
The only problem is
team.
They're not on that team.
They were gallivanting around DR and Haiti. They had a couple long drives going out to the house.
In the jungle, not in cities.
Yeah, or out in that house in the middle of nowhere, the farmhouse.
The house, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, this makes no sense to me. I'm just going to be honest.
Gale doesn't even meet up with him until he's in prison. So
she gets him out of prison. Yeah,
the two of them are never actually, like, he is the only one that's walking through the cities. Like, one time he's running to try to catch that dark one because the kidnapper, the kid,
yeah. Fighting Calypso. Gale's not anywhere to be seen for that. You need a cemetery, bro. I'm sorry. I needed a cemetery on the cover. That scene was so cool. Sarah Beth projecting and telling him how to go and how to find the grave, then digging him up, and David with the shovel.
I would even taken like a crazy palace in the Caribbean, like some sort of estate from on high.
A big wide open estate drone shot. Yeah, same. Not a cobblestone European looking city.
Or lean into the voodoo.
Right, you can do some of the voodoo symbols,
and, like, have some voodoo symbols, have a voodoo doll, I don't know, or like something like that.
Can we just talk about the purple as well? Purple doesn't work.
I guess because they're going for like the whole spooky vibe.
Purple don't work. I could have taken like an ocean blue, like a Caribbean blue, like on the Barbados flag or something, like that. That kind of blue. But
all right, so what are you giving it, man? I might have to go 1.
Yeah, 1 for sure.
This is where not having multiple covers, getting hurt.
Yeah. An alternate one maybe could have brought it up a point or two or half a point, but
yeah,
I'm just not too happy with it. And Gale, terrible silhouette outline running away from some sparks randomly appearing on cobblestones. No, thank you. Gale's shape is so weird too. I don't.
All right. Well, what's your free space, my dude?
It looks like something from West Side Story.
A little bit. They're running away from the Jets, the Sharks.
I don't know, man. I've said it over and over. I like the cemetery scene. I just think it's well written. To me, it was the peak of suspense. I know the final battle was supposed to be it, but the most I was bought into this book was the cemetery scene, him buried alive. And I knew David had a role to play. And there we go. Between the cemetery scene, but also David's arc in this book, coming around, realizing he has a role to play, realizing he has value to Jed, to the team, and to the mission. I think that was sorely needed, and it satisfied.
That's a good one. Yeah, to me, it's got to be the Dark Watchers, and particularly Sunny. Like,
Yeah.
in her interactions with Jed, her interactions with Sarah Beth, and I have a feeling that she's gonna be a major player.
Yep.
To come in the
I
next
agree.
couple books.
I agree.
You know, I think she has the power to be like a Corbin, to be like a Sarah Beth. So
Sarah Beth is the Corbin to her.
Sure. Like, I'm super intrigued by what she can and will do. To me, like, she's my free space. So
I'm with you. Perfect. I do have a limerick which goes to some of our points that we discussed here tonight. As Calypso comes on hot and heavy, Jed nearly dies and was buried. But grabbing the shovel, David ends the tussle, though Ben Morvant seems quite wary.
You rhyming buried with heavy?
A little bit of a stretch.
Yeah. Okay. Right.
I think something with the pronunciation was supposed to make it rhyme better, and I didn't pull it off. Just like this book didn't pull it.
We'll give you an A for effort. An A for
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yep.
1 out of 5.
All right. Well,
start scoring the limericks now.
we definitely have our lowest score of the series. Last book we were 31 or 35. This one we're a 31 and a 31.5. I would say like it's not quite 20s territory.
No. Low 30s is where it should be.
Yeah. So
the scorecard works. The scorecard lives.
Yeah. Doesn't lie. Scorecard doesn't lie. All right. Well, yeah, we have like I said at the top, we have a lot coming for you guys. Brad Thor, Kyle Mills, Fade In, Edge of Honor, S.A. Cosby. Probably going to throw in some Eric Bishop into there. Let me just pull up our reading list. Sons of Valor 4. We have a new patron, Brad Elder. He's a bona fide author. We'll be covering his book, Recoil of Justice. So, we want to get into Nuclear War, Steve Barry, Terminalist, the show, Dan Brown. We have a lot. But we have the summer. It's summertime, baby. Happy belated Father's Day to you, Mike.
Thank you, sir. Yourself as well. Congrats on being a new father, not to another child, not to another chicken, but this time to a puppy.
Yep, I did it. Got a puppy to the kids.
You were forced to do it.
I was forced to do it. I'm an idiot. You know, what's another sleepless night? Yeah, it's all good. Happy Father's Day is a little belated, but to all the fathers out there, all the fathers that are patrons. Oh, we didn't even mention, we had a fantastic, probably one of our best patron hangouts last week, talking about a little bit of the 7th floor, mainly talking about other stuff. So, if you want to be a part of our ever-growing dialogue of our patrons, bunch of nerds talking about thrillers,
the Thriller Pod Book Club,
go to our website.
Patreon tab. Take you to our Patreon page. Yep.
You get access to...
I think I called it the Book Club tab.
Oh,
click
there
the
we
Book
go.
Club tab.
Get access to probably the best thing on earth is our WhatsApp
group chat
group, as well as our monthly or quarterly hangouts. Mike even had his first meetup last year. So we have big plans coming forward for this group. We've been ever evolving. Couldn't do it without you guys. So before we get out of here, need to thank our patrons, Deputy Director Sherry F. and Brad, Special Agents Ben, Daryl, Kevin, George, Matt, Don, Peggy, Chris, and Mark. Want to take us out of here, Mike?
Just like Gale. Be Gale.
There we go. Love it.